big executive order in terms of cryptocurrency, remarkably short in length.
If the best Democrats could come up with is, I don't like that guy or that gal, if that's their message, which it was for the last 4 years and lost at the ballot box, then they're facing a very hard path moving forward.
I think they could really have the Democrats on the ropes for quite a while if their ideas work.
Welcome to the Crypto Swamp Creatures, the show you never knew you needed and still don't want anyways. I'm Christopher Alexander, your blockchain and advocacy communications expert.
And I'm Justin Wallin, your guide through the often murky world of politics and polling.
Every week, we dive into the intersection of crypto, policy, and politics without taking sides. We're here to give you the straight, data-driven analysis that influences the decisions of those who want to win or want to be elected.
Think of it as a late 80s newscast, but with a twist. We bring you the serious stuff, but with a dash of sardonic wit and just a hint of irreverence.
So whether you're a crypto enthusiast, a policy wonk, or just someone who appreciates a data-driven approach, this is your place.
We bring you both sides, weigh the impact on crypto, and then we share what we use for show prep every week on our medium.
So remember, no one is as smart as someone who agrees with you, and now get ready to enter the no swamp zone.
Welcome back to the Crypto Swamp Creatures. We're kind of like the Tonight Show, Justin and I realized, but 45 years too late. So, watch Tim Conway and Johnny Carson, and I think you might see some resemblance. And then it sort of haunts Justin and I that, of course, that show was canceled. We talked about the world's deadliest job, which is being a cartel cold wallet manager. And then we veered a little into the exciting world of counter-narco operations. We had some suggestions, actually, for cartel members who might want to request a transfer if they have a top-notch HR department. But
it's a practical show, and you want to come here for all of your professional decisions. Should you be in the underworld?
Yeah, and by the way, kind of ironic, right? If this were a year ago, they could have probably claimed asylum. But nevertheless, we'll see how that goes. So really interesting executive order, strengthening American leadership in digital financial technology. And I've been watching people who don't read so good. And we're going to also talk about their reading of the Constitution and the Trump coin in our final segment that we record this week. But pretty big executive order in terms of cryptocurrency, remarkably short in length. I'm actually impressed as someone who would get orders from the executive branch and have to kind of translate them. It's interesting, but there's some hints here, and so this is like a commander's intent for the federal government, for the civilian side of government, actually, and kind of the military. The National Security Council is named anyways. But Justin, what people don't realize is they drop some clues. And because politicians are slimy, they don't want to say things directly that they can be held accountable for. Like accountability in government, that's like every politician's and bureaucrat's nightmare.
Responsibility is the third rail.
Yeah. Manuals of leadership, avoid responsibility, vague statements that you can't be blamed for, so on and so forth. But that's founding fathers wrote about it. It's nothing new. So there are some interesting hints in there. And so, just to start at the top, it really covers just two things that Trump talked about on his campaign. And I think you've said it best, the poetic language that Trump uses, what he means versus what he says. He means to keep the promises he makes, even if he says absurd things about them. And he kind of delivered on this one. But what do you think so far in terms of rhetoric versus action?
Oh, I'm actually I'm surprised, but I have been surprised kind of for the last several months in terms of the professionalism of action. One is the people that he's putting in charge of different departments, and there's I get it. There's a lot of meme activity. There's a lot of, attention put on the attention-getting people, the Pete Hegseths and those folks of the world. That notwithstanding, and we can talk about that if we wanted, but there's a million other people talking about that. What's really interesting are the people that aren't getting much press, right? Those people, for the most part, and I mean vast majority, are highly professional people, highly skilled in the fields in which they're placed to manage in some way, shape, or form. And they're being placed in a remarkably rapid fashion. So I think there was a tremendous amount of planning from a president who is hardly accused of being a careful planner. He's typically personified by reflexive reactions. And that is not what's going on now. We're seeing rapid action. We're seeing professional action. We're seeing action that is largely lining up to exactly what he said he would do on the campaign trail. Now, scale is a matter of call it negotiation, call it evolution, call it whatever you will, because things change over time, given the impacts of practical realities. So scale, I anticipate changes. We've seen some changes in scale and various things, but this is, in my perspective, this is probably one of the most professional rollouts of a government that I've seen.
Yeah, not anything I would have predicted. I mean, it's astounding. They had the OPM, the HR guy. Speaking of HR, if you will, for the White House, director of personnel or something along those lines, and they hired over 1,300 people already in 3 days. And of course, you have time, you prep going in, but that's staggering. The only place you're being stymied is on appointments. And by the way, compared to the Obama administration, Obama had pretty much gotten his cabinet by this point. And the Democrats are just, they're being obstructionist. It's their usual playbook, I think. What they're going to do is they're going to say, oh, well, they're going to drag their feet. They're going to force recess appointments. So basically they adjourn the Congress, and then the president just puts everybody in place, and then they're going to say Trump's a dictator. So they're all set for that. Elon's a Nazi, Trump's a Nazi, you're a Nazi, I'm a Nazi, we're all Nazis, and if we disagree. So I think you can see that, but
yeah, and that stuff is, I mean, it's interesting how that stuff works. The crying wolf, the story is a fairy tale and a lesson for children for a good reason, because it's true, and we're seeing that now, that you can only use hyperbole of that degree for so long. And it's been years now. And Americans are no longer buying into it. It is terrific at whipping up a base, or at least it was. But I don't see it even really being terribly effective at whipping up the highly progressive blue base anymore. There was a time when you could call a Republican a Nazi and get an extraordinary amount of content around it and days of conversation and even changes in approval ratings. I think those times are behind us, not because people like Nazis. It's not the takeaway about it, but because people recognize that the charge is a reflexive charge, not grounded in reality. And they're much more willing to go out and look and say, well, what actually happened? And draw their own conclusions. I think it's a good thing for American society, regardless of where you stand on things. You may be clutching pearls a little bit about this administration. I get that. I respect it. I empathize with it. What I think doesn't really matter, but what voters think is to be more critical in their assessments of what is being told to them by pundits and by their electeds. That's a wonderful, wonderful place to be for a democracy.
It's almost like your policy decisions should not be informed by Barbra Streisand. It's a crazy idea. By the way, they also shouldn't be informed by the Hulk, lest I am too bipartisan in this.
You don't want to line up one side or another. Yeah, that's the truth of things. People are, people are watching, and they are judging. And they are judging the Trump presidency. And I think the presidency has been wise to attempt to move very, very quickly, because a lack of success on the things that they've said they're going to do will bite them. It'll bite them in the midterms, and it could ultimately lose the next presidency. So they're facing very charged waters, and I think they're taking it realistically, and they're approaching it very professional.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting. Like, they're going to get their shot. There's going to be obstructionism.
That's life.
Yeah, and they don't have anything else, right? It's not like they have a competing option here. So Presumably they'll work that out here in the next few weeks because they seem to be sort of shell shocked. But yeah, he's going to get a shot, so it better work. Midterms are riding on it, and it's I think a very interesting inflection point. I think they could really have the Democrats on the ropes for quite a while if their ideas work. If their ideas work, and married to if the best Democrats can come up with is, I don't like that guy or that gal. If that's their message, which it was for the last 4 years and lost at the ballot box, then they're facing a very hard path moving forward. Yeah, and I never want to root against the country. I want the Democrats to come up with good ideas. Their ideas, objectifiably, at least in the eyes of voters, have been terrible. And they need to rethink and recalibrate and come back, and maybe they will. I would have said for sure they will, except I've been watching in the past few weeks, waiting for them to stop calling everyone a Nazi. But
old habits die hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for this crypto, he said the Crypto Council has the executive order on strengthening cryptocurrencies. There's a couple interesting points right off the bat, and we pointed this out previously. One, there are no Bitcoin maxis or Bitcoin miners in any of the significant appointees. It's no longer called a strategic Bitcoin reserve. It's called a strategic cryptocurrency reserve that they're going to study. So the issue.
What does the term study mean to you, Christopher, in government?
Admire the problem.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It doesn't mean action, that's for sure.
And what's amazing about government is they actually have a way to quantify admiration. Now, one might think it would be a gift of jewelry or a car or something for human beings. But the way the government measures the admiration of a problem is the weight of the report. So this is going to be a very interesting kind of test of this bureaucracy, because it's sort of a new bureaucracy being created to handle cryptocurrency, right? These task force. And so are they going to do it the old fashioned way and produce 7,000 pages? Or are they going to actually have a strategy? I think it's a very interesting test of how Trump's going to govern, actually, across the board. But you get some unusual clarity into it because there's not a lot of previous work or kind of chaff in the way. So what they're going to do is they're going to, but first and foremost, and they're going to do what he said was most important, they are tasked with providing clear rules for industry, and they are supposed to work with industry. Now, if you recall, under the previous regime, there were dozens, over 30 meetings between Coinbase, between Kraken, with the government to provide rules, a framework, because they wanted a framework. And at the conclusion of a year and dozens of meetings, some aspects of the meetings were then used to charge each of those companies and fine them with SEC violations. That is not even like a hyperbolic description. It quite literally happened. Absolutely just shocking. So they're going to fix everything. They're going to try anyways, but I'm sure that's how they describe it. But the issue they're addressing is there's not clear rules, and there need to be.
And that's all for this week on the Crypto Swamp Creatures.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the intersection of crypto, politics, and policy.
Remember, the data doesn't lie, and neither do we. Well, not about anything important anyways.
Until next time, stay informed, stay skeptical, stay out of the swamp.